Hi everyone. So today we are going to learn about gustation. I'm Dr. Piyush Patel. So objective of today's lecture is introduction about gustation, which is the site for the taste or gustation, taste pathway, physiology of taste, and finally we will learn in short about applied part. So let us start with the introduction. Gustation. This name is not that much familiar, but you all know the second name of this sensation, that is taste, right? So gustation is nothing but it is the sense of taste, which is actually a chemical sense, and that is stimulated by food and drink. So the question is, why we need the taste? This is essential for our quality of life. For the better digestion of the food, we must need the taste of the particular food. Don't be confused with the flavor and taste. Both things are different. Taste is one type of sensation, that is a spatial sensation, and flavor is actually combination of lots of things. Like flavor comprises taste as well as olfaction with tactile sensation and with also temperature sensation. So you can say flavor is the combination of gustation, olfaction, tactile sensation and the temperature sensation. Now we will learn about the site of taste. So you can see in this figure, you can see in this picture that which is the site of taste. This child is showing you the tongue, and that is actually the site of taste. On the tongue you will see small dot like radius projection. This is absolutely normal thing, and these are called as papilla. The small dot like projection which is present on the tongue are called as papilla. Many of you may have heard about taste buds, which actually detect the taste sensation, right? So these taste buds are actually present inside the papilla, and these papilla are actually present on the dorsal surface of the tongue. So we have to learn about the structure of the papilla, which are the different types of papilla, and then we will finally learn about structure of the taste buds. So this is the dorsal surface of the tongue, on which you will find different papilla. So which are the papillas present on the tongue? First, velar papilla, they are also called as circumvallate papilla. Then foliate papilla. Third one is the fungiform papilla. And finally fourth one is filiform papilla. We learn each papilla one by one. Circumvallate papilla. Before going to learn in detail about papilla, first there is a one V-shaped groove. This is the V-shaped groove on the dorsal surface of the tongue. This V-shaped groove actually divides this whole part of the tongue into anterior 2/3 of the tongue and posterior 1/3 of the tongue. This V-shaped groove is called as sulcus terminalis. This V-shaped groove is called as sulcus terminalis, which actually divides the tongue into anterior 2/3 part and the posterior 1/3 part. Just in front of the sulcus terminalis, you will find circumvallate papilla. Okay, so these are the circumvallate papilla. This dot-like projection, these are called as circumvallate papilla. These are around 10 to 12 in numbers. There contains around 200 taste buds. You can see in the walls of the circumvallate papilla, these are the taste buds, and they are around 1200 in number. Next, that is fungiform papilla, right? So this is the location of the fungiform papilla. That means they are present in the entire two-thirds of the tongue, along the edges of the tongue as well as tip of the tongue, okay, on both the side. Yes. So these are the location like edges as well as tip of the tongue. They contain around 8 to 10 taste buds. Each papilla, each fungiform papilla contains 8 to 10 taste buds. Third papilla, that is the foliate papilla, which is actually found on the posterolateral surface of the tongue, right, on both the side, posterolateral surface of the tongue, okay, just before or side of this sulcus terminalis. They also contains numerous taste buds. Finally, fourth one, that is filiform papilla. So up to now what we have seen, this is the area which contains this circumvallar papilla. This posterolateral surface which contain foliate papilla. Along these edges as well as tip, okay, along the edges as well as tip, this surface area contains the fungiform papilla. All the remaining surface, all the remaining surface of the tongue which actually contains this filiform papilla, okay. But the thing is, we cannot call this filiform papilla as a true gustatory papilla. Why? Because they are not containing any type of taste buds. This circumvallar papilla, foliate papilla and fungiform papilla, they contains the taste bud, but this filiform papilla, they do not contain any type of taste buds. So that's why they are not true gustatory papillae, and these all the three, they are the gustatory papillae. This filiform papilla actually helping in breaking down the food particles, so that's why they are called as mechanical papilla. Instead of gustatory papilla, this one is called as mechanical papilla. Okay, so these are the all things about papilla. Now we will learn in detail about this taste buds. Before that, so tongue is not the only site on which you will find the taste buds. Few numbers of taste buds you will also find in nasal cavities, soft palate, pharynx, epiglottis, larynx, respiratory tract and esophagus. They're not containing taste buds as much as we are finding on the surface of the tongue, but in some amount they are also containing the taste buds. Now we have to learn about the structure of the taste bud. Taste buds is actually containing three type of cell. One is the receptor cell, one is the supporting cell, and one is the basal cell. You have to learn about all these three cells. First, we are going to learn about receptor cells, and that is actually main cell. Sometimes this is also called as taste cell, because these are the cells which actually generate the action potential. These are the receptor cell. They are bipolar cell. They have very short lifespan, just about 10 days. So you can say after 10 days, around 10 days, you need newer receptor cell. This receptor cell on the upper part of the tongue, they have this cilia-like projection which actually open into the taste pore. Whatever the food particle is coming, this food particle first they are trapped into this cilia, and from the cilia whatever the chemical present inside this food, they will generate, they will try to generate some electrical changes into this receptor cell. These receptor cells are innervated by different afferent fiber. You can see this different fiber, they will innervate this receptor cell. Next is the basal cell, which is present on the bottom part of this taste bud. So as we know, this receptor cell, they have very short lifespan, just around 10 days. So after 10 days, obviously you need new receptor cells. So from where they are coming? This basal cell. They're continuously being differentiated into this new taste cell. So they will try to produce new receptor cell. And finally, you have this supporting cell. As the name suggests, they will just support this receptor cell. Okay, so these are the structure, or you can say all the type of cells present in the taste bud: receptor cell, supporting cell, and the basal cell. Mainly receptor cell is necessary to generate the action potential. Next is the taste pathway. So like any other pathway, this pathway also contains the first order neuron, second order neuron, and third order neuron. For the first order neuron, different cell bodies like geniculate ganglion, petrosal ganglion, and the nodosal ganglion of different nerve we'll talk about later. So first of all, first order neuron, which contains the afferent fiber from the anterior two-third part of the tongue, anterior two-third of the tongue, different fibers carries the taste sensation. The branch is cauda tympani branch, which is actually branch of the facial nerve. Okay, again from the anterior two-third of the tongue, afferent fiber carries the taste sensation in the cauda tympani nerve, which is a branch of seventh cranial nerve, that is the facial nerve, and cell bodies for these fibers lies in the geniculate ganglion. From the posterior two-third of the tongue, the taste sensation carries via ninth cranial nerve, that is the glossopharyngeal nerve, and the cell bodies for these fibers lies in the petrosal ganglion. Right? So from anterior two-third via the facial nerve and the posterior one-third via the glossopharyngeal nerve, and the remaining taste bud like present in the pharynx, epiglottis, soft palate, hard palate, upper part of esophagus. This afferent fibers carries the taste sensation via 10th cranial nerve, that is the vagus nerve, and the cell bodies lies in the nodose ganglion. Clear? So all these nerve fibers from the facial nerve, from the glossopharyngeal nerve, and from the vagus nerve, they will enter into the medulla oblongata and they will end on a particular nucleus. This nucleus is called as nucleus of tractus solitarius. Okay, so this is the root of first order neuron. First order neuron will terminate onto this nucleus, that is nucleus of tractus solitarius. Then the second order neuron will arise. Second order neuron fibers will arise from the nucleus of tractus solitarius. They will ascend onto the ipsilateral side. Some fiber may cross to the opposite side, but most of the fibers ascend onto the ipsilateral side, and finally second order neuron will terminate into the ventroposterior nucleus, ventroposterior medial nucleus of thalamus. Okay, second order neuron fibers From the nucleus fructus solitarius, finally they will end into the ventral-posterior medial nucleus of thalamus. From here, from the ventral-posterior medial nucleus thalamus, third order neuron will arise, and this third order neuron finally end onto the primary sensory cortex for the gustation, that is also called as gustatory cortex, that is also called as anterior-insular frontal operculum, okay, which actually detects the taste sensation. Clear? So this is all about taste pathway. So now we are going to learn about physiology of taste. Right? So actually we learn the mechanism of different taste buds, that how this all these gustatory stimuli, they will actually generate the action potential. So under the heading of physiology of taste, we will divide this into three subtopics: gustatory stimuli, transduction of gustatory stimuli, and the transmission of information to the cortex. Gustatory stimuli. So as we already know, whatever the food particles, they contain some chemicals, and those are actually called as gustatory stimuli because they are actually generating the action potential. So there are different type of gustatory stimuli. We will see only main gustatory stimuli. So there are 5 type of gustatory stimuli. First, sweet sensation. Second, bitter sensation. Third, sour sensation. Fourth, salty sensation. And recently, fifth stimuli discovered, the name is umami sensation. Sweet sensation you already know, produced by sugar and glycol. Bitter sensation by caffeine and nicotine. Sour sensation by some acids. Salty by salts. And umami sensation, food that carries the glutamate substance like tomatoes, cheese and mushroom. They carries the umami taste sensation. Right. Now we want to see this how this all the chemical you can say chemical stimuli, how this chemical stimuli will actually produce the action potential, and this process of production of the action potential, or you can say generation of the action potential from the chemical stimuli, is called as transduction of the gustatory stimuli. Clear? So what do you mean by transduction? Generation of action potential from the chemical stimuli. Okay, different kind of stimuli like sweet, bitter, salty, sour, or umami all have the different mechanism for the transduction of gustatory stimuli. So let us see one by one. Okay, before going to the individual you can say transduction level, in all the transduction one thing is common. So first learn the basic thing. These are the receptor cell. Okay, this is the structure of the taste bud, and we have already learned about this receptor cell, right? So whenever this food particle is coming, this food particle is enter through this cilia. Actually not food particle, but whatever the chemical stimuli present in this food particle, this chemical stimuli will try to enter through this cilia. Okay, if we zoom this receptor cell, this is just the one receptor cell. Okay, so we'll learn how this chemical will try to generate the action potential into the nerve fiber. So the basic thing to generate the action potential into this afferent neuron, you need neurotransmitter. If you know the neuromuscular junction, you know that whenever this neurotransmitter will release into the synaptic cleft, they will either stimulate or inhibit this neuron. So basically we need this neurotransmitter into the synaptic cleft to activate, or you can say to generate the action potential into this primary afferent neuron. So the basic thing is this neurotransmitter is inside this vesicle. All the neurotransmitter are inside this vesicle. So whenever this vesicle will fuse with this presynaptic membrane of the receptor cell, this neurotransmitter via the process of exocytosis, they will release into the synaptic cleft. Now how this vesicle will fuse with this presynaptic membrane? They need this ion, that is calcium. So whenever calcium is more inside this receptor cell, okay, whenever via any mechanism, if you have more amount of calcium inside this receptor cell, this calcium will help this vesicle to fuse with this presynaptic membrane, and via the process of exocytosis, this whatever the neurotransmitter inside this vesicle, they will release into the synaptic cleft, and finally they will stimulate or they will stimulate the postsynaptic membrane, and finally they will actually produce the action potential into this afferent neuron. So this is the basic thing. We need the calcium via any mechanism so we can release the neurotransmitter. Now we will see how this different kind of taste stimuli like sweet or salty or sour or bitter, how they will actually increase the calcium level inside this receptor cell. So now we will learn about the transduction of sweet taste or sweet gustatory stimuli. This is the one receptor cell. So whenever sweet molecule, they will trapped into the cilia of the receptor cell. First, this molecule will bind with the G protein. Okay, this coupling with the G protein, name of the G protein is gustducin. Okay, so whenever this sweet molecule bind with the G protein, that is called as gustducin, this will actually activate adenyl cyclase system. Okay, the coupling reaction between the sweet molecule and G protein gustducin, this will activate adenyl cyclase. This adenyl cyclase will actually produce more and more amount of cyclic AMP. So you can say increase amount of the cyclic AMP. What this cyclic AMP will do? This cyclic AMP will activate protein kinase. Okay. Again, this sweet molecule will bind with the G protein gustducin. This will actually activate adenyl cyclase system. This will actually increase the production of cyclic AMP, and this actually activate protein kinase. Now, what is the action of protein kinase? So you can say, if you know the resting membrane potential, genesis of resting membrane potential, for the negativity of resting membrane potential, two main mechanisms are working. One is the leaky potassium channel, you can see here, and another is sodium potassium active pump. So when the cell is at rest, continuously this potassium actually leaving the cell through this leaky potassium channel. So that's why you have negativity inside this cell. But when this protein kinase is activated, this protein kinase is actually blocking this potassium channel. So because of the blocking of this potassium channel, now this potassium cannot leave the cell. So now more and more amount of potassium will be here inside the cell. So that means increasing the level of potassium. That means here cell is getting depolarized into this area. Clear? Because of activation of the protein kinase, this will actually block this potassium channel. So whatever amount of the potassium, they will not leave the cell, but they will gather inside this area. So this area gets depolarized. Because of the depolarization of this area, that means actually voltage is changing in this area. So because of that, you will find some special channel here. They are voltage gated channel. As the name suggests, voltage gated channel means they will only open when there will be change in the voltage, or this area may get depolarized. So because of the depolarization, or you can say change in the voltage, by increasing the potassium level, this channel will open, and they are the voltage gated calcium channel. You already know that the calcium are more in the ECF, extracellular fluid. So now calcium will enter inside this cell because of opening of this channel, calcium channel. So now more and more number of the calcium ions will be inside this area. Once you have sufficient amount of calcium, you already know the role of calcium. Calcium will help to fuse this vesicle via exocytosis process. Neurotransmitter will release, and this neurotransmitter will actually generate the action potential in the post synaptic neuron, or you can say afferent neuron. Clear? So this is the mechanism how sweet testant will act also. So whenever bitter molecule bind to this G protein, same like sweet tasted, but the name of G protein is different. The name of this protein is transducin. In the case of sweet tasted, that was gustducin. Here is the transducin. So whenever this bitter molecule bind to this transducin, it will activate this one protein, that is phospholipase C. Okay, this is the phospholipase C. And what phospholipase will do? This phospholipase C will actually convert phosphoinositol diphosphate into inositol triphosphate. When you have increased amount of inositol triphosphate, this inositol triphosphate will act onto the endoplasmic reticulum, and if you know that endoplasmic reticulum also contain lots of calcium, right? So again this bitter molecule bind to the transducin, that is one type of G protein which actually activate phospholipase C, and this will actually increase the level of inositol triphosphate. This inositol triphosphate will act onto the endoplasmic reticulum, which actually contains lots of calcium. What it will do? This will open this calcium channel. So whatever amount of calcium present inside this endoplasmic reticulum, this calcium will release. And once you have calcium, you already know this will help in the fusion of vesicle to the presynaptic membrane. By the process of exocytosis, neurotransmitter will release, act onto the postsynaptic neuron, and they will generate action potential in the afferent neuron. They can directly block the potassium channel, right? You know, you have this leaky potassium channel through which potassium is going out, but they can directly block this. Bitter molecule bind here and they can directly block this. And in the previous slide, we know if the potassium is increasing, how the calcium level is also increased. Next is the salty taste. How salty taste will work? So say for example NaCl. So how this NaCl will produce the action potential in the afferent neuron? You have special type of epithelial sodium channel. They are also called as amiloride sensitive sodium channel. These are called as amiloride sensitive sodium channel, and they are very specific to sodium ion only. So whenever NaCl is present, this sodium ions will enter into this receptor cell. More and more amount of sodium will enter into this receptor cell via this amiloride sensitive sodium channel. What they will do, if you increase the amount of sodium in this area, that means ultimately you are changing the voltage in this area, right? So that means you are actually depolarizing this area. So if you change the voltage, you have this voltage gated calcium channel. This will open when this area is depolarized, or you can say when there will be change in the voltage. So because of the entry of the sodium, voltage change in this area, they will open this calcium ion, and because of the opening of calcium ion, this calcium will influx into this receptor cell, and rest of the story you already know, right? How it will generate how this calcium will generate the action potential. Okay. Once the action potential is generated in the afferent neuron, how it will reach to the cortex? If you know, it's very easy. So you've already learned this, that from the anterior two-thirds of the tongue, it carries the taste sensation or action potential, travels through the cranial nerve 7, facial nerve, from the posterior one-third through the glossopharyngeal nerve, and remaining part through the vagus nerve. From here, action potential will travel and it will reach to the nucleus tractus solitarius in the brain stem. From here, action potential reach to the ventroposteromedial nucleus of thalamus, and finally it will reach to the insula and the frontal cortex, that is the gustatory cortex. Now keep in mind one thing, second order neuron which is in the nucleus tractus solitarius, which arise from the nucleus tractus solitarius, they will give some branches to the hypothalamus as well as amygdala. They have some connection with the hypothalamus and amygdala, as well as gustatory cortex directly have some connection with the hypothalamus and amygdala, and this will give you the reason why you have some emotions with the food. If you like the food, you'll be very happy. If you dislike the food, you will be sometimes sad. Okay, this will relate to your mood. Why? Because second order neuron as well as from the gustatory cortex, they have some connection with the hypothalamus and amygdala. So these are about physiology of taste. Now very quickly, some factors which actually influence the taste sensation. First of all, age. So around after 45 to 50 years of age, you may have blunt taste because of decrease in the taste bud. They do not regenerate or produce more amount of taste buds after the 50 years of age. Next is the gender. In general, women are more sensitive to sweet and salt and less sensitive to sour. Next is the area of stimulation. If you stimulate a larger area of the tongue, obviously you will feel more taste. Next is the concentration of the taste bud. That means if the concentration of taste stimuli are more, that means in a concentrated food you will feel the more taste than the diluted food. Next is the temperature of the taste bud. In a certain range of temperature like 30 to 40 degree of 40 degrees Celsius of temperature, you will find good taste. Particularly we are talking about cooking food. Next is the adaptation. Adaptation in case of taste sensation is taking slowly, but definitely adaptation is there. So if you're taking a food for a longer time, you will feel no good taste because of adaptation. Next is the interaction between taste producing substance is obviously there. So that's why if you are feeling more sour sensation in a food, you are adding sugar to decrease the sour taste. Next is the effect of taste modifying proteins. Some proteins like say for example miraculin, when we are applying this miraculin protein on the tongue, this will actually alter the taste sensation. Okay, if you apply miraculin and if you are giving the acids, person may taste this acid as a sweet sensation, so it will actually modify the taste. Effect of drugs. Some sulfonyl drugs, captopril, they will actually alter the taste sensation or they will actually decrease the taste sensation. Now applied part in short. First is ageusia. What do you mean by ageusia? This is the completely absence of the taste sensation. What are the causes of ageusia? It may be because of lesion in the facial nerve or the glossopharyngeal nerve. We have already talked about drugs like captopril and penicillamine and familial dysautonomia. Hypogeusia, that means decrease in the taste sensitivity. Cause for the hypogeusia is Bell's palsy, seventh cranial nerve palsy, or if some person is taking antidepressant drugs. Next is the hypergeusia, that means increase in the sense of taste. Cause is the Addison's disease. Next is the selective taste blindness. As the name suggests, selective taste. The person have the inability to taste certain substances. Say for example, some person cannot taste the bitter sensation, but they are absolutely normal towards other taste sensation like maybe sweet or sour, salty or umami, but they cannot taste the bitter sensation. Why they cannot taste the bitter sensation? Because they have elevated threshold for the PTC, that means phenyl thiocarbamide. This PTC is actually one type of chemical substance which is necessary for the bitter taste, and they have elevated threshold for the PTC. That's why they have inability to particularly bitter taste sensation. So that's why they are called as selective taste blindness. Finally, dysgeusia means altered taste sensation or the disturbed taste sensation, right? If you are giving some person a sweet sensation, sweet food, that person may sense that food as sour or bitter. That is the altered taste sensation, that is called as dysgeusia. You'll find this dysgeusia in temporal lobe syndrome, right? So these were all about the applied part. Thank you.